So now we're going to start the pumpkin painting. What you need is some scrap paper, a canvas, a minimum size of 8 by 10 or 9 by 12. If you don't want to freehand draw it, if you don't feel comfortable drawing, you're going to need a printout from the canvas of the pumpkins. You're going to need some paint. I don't care which colors you paint your pumpkin, but I do want the background to be blue and white, and I want the table to be a realistic color, but the pumpkins can be any color you want. You're going to need a pencil and some brushes and a little saucer of water, which I forgot. I'm going to stop and get organized. So your first step is, if you don't feel comfortable drawing, which is fine, after you printed this pumpkins out on regular paper, you're going to turn it over and you're going to take a pencil, preferably an old-fashioned number 2, but if you can't, a mechanical works fine. What you're going to do is you're going to go and scribble, scribble, scribble until it's completely black. And then once that's done, you're going to turn this over and you're going to press the outer lines down where you want it on the canvas, and that will be like a form of tracing paper. So I'm going to stop the video and go ahead and do that and catch up with you in a sec. Okay, I scribbled on the back, so I got lots of lead on there. I'm going to turn this piece of paper over. I'm going to position this exactly where I want it on the page. Then I'm going to take the pencil and I'm going to push down on the outer edges. And it needs to be hard. And I'm going to go back over it once or twice, and you see how it is tracing on my canvas, so I don't have to freehand draw. If you want to freehand draw, that's fine. I'm just trying to make it easier on you. Now you can see that the pumpkins are drawn out with pencil lightly. I'm going to add a table line, so I'm adding a line right down here. Make sure that line isn't in the center because that's rule of thirds. And now we're going to paint the background blue and white. So I'm going to stop it and I'm going to mix a little paint. As previously stated, I want the background to be white and blue. So what I'm going to do is I took 3 scoops of white, and I'm going to take a scoop of blue, and I'm going to put it on my scrap paper, and I'm going to make a medium to a baby blue by mixing that together. Remember, you always start with the lighter color first. And that might not be enough, so I'm going to put some more white in there. I'm going to mix it up real good and get a color that I want. And I'm happy with that color. All right, let's set that to the side. Now I'm going to turn my canvas this way. I want to paint up and down vertically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down the base coat of this color that I just made. And I'm painting in a left to right manner. And making sure that my strokes aren't like a crazy person, but I'm going in a left to right manner. And I'm laying down the base coat. And making sure it's not thick in areas, that it's nice and even. It's okay if I go over that pumpkin a little bit. I can come back and spruce it up later. So there's the base coat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dab my brush in a little bit of blue, and I'm going to go just dab, 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 no place in particular. And I'm going to even do white. Dab, dab, dab. And then I'm going to take the scrap paper, get that off. And I'm going to go in a left to right manner. And it's going to just all blend nicely together. Getting that extra paint off my brush. So I'm going to have some white spots and I'm going to have some blue spots. I'm going to blend them all in and they're going to look nice. This spot looks kind of sad, doesn't have anything. So I'm going to go back and add a couple little spots of blue. Get that blue off my brush on the scrap paper. And I'm going to go back and blend it all in. All right, I'm going to stop there and I'm going to finish the background. Okay, I finished the background. Remember, those strokes should be up and down. I want to resemble the wall, and now I'm going to do the table. So I'm going to take a little bit of white paint and some brown, and if you don't have brown, remember you can mix two complementary colors, which would be red and green, yellow and purple, or blue and orange. Any of those are fun. So I'm going to take a little bit of this white paint and I'm going to mix a tab of this brown in it. And I'm trying to get a realistic table color. Then I'm going to paint from left to right the same way as I did before, putting down like a base coat. And if I can go over the pumpkins a little bit, it's not a biggie. And then once I get the base coat, I'm going to put a darker color in there, dab, dab, dab. And I'm going to put a little bit of white in there, dab, dab, dab. And then I'm going to wipe my brush off on the scrap paper. And then maybe a half a drop of water in my brush. And then blend it all together. And I'm going to go over these pumpkins. That's okay. I can redraw them. So this needs a little bit of brown. So I'm going to put a little in there. Maybe a little white in here. And then after I got my base coat on there, I'm blending it all together so it looks nice and seamless. Maybe a little half a drop of water right here to kind of blend that. If it looks too blended, go back and add a little bit more brown. Remember, I want to go from left to right, and I don't want it to be one solid color, and I want the added colors to not stand out. Okay, I'm going to stop and finish and paint the rest. Okay, I've waited for the paint to dry, and now I'm going to paint the pumpkins. Like I said before, you can paint them any color you want. I'm going to paint the first pumpkin at the bottom orange. So I have a little bit of orange paint, but it was a little bit bright for me, so I put a little bit of brown in it to kind of dull the color so it wasn't so fluorescent. So I kind of made a big batch of the color that I want, and then I'm going to go in here and paint it. So I'm just going to lay down the color, and then I'm going to go back and make sure that my strokes, my brush strokes, are in the direction that I wanted. And then after I got that, I'm going to go with the, just like when we did the sphere, we're going to curve our brush back and forth. We want that to be nice and curved. So see how I'm doing that. And I'm not going like around and around like that, because then the brush strokes would be round and circular and not curved like the pumpkin. So I'm going to decide what side I want to be on the light side and what side I want to be on the dark side. So this, imagine that there is an additional light or sun. And we're going to make this the darker side. So after I have laid down my paint, again, curving my brush and curving my wrist. And that might take 2 coats because I painted over it, but that's okay. I don't mind. I'm going to take a little bit of brown paint and I'm going to take most of it off. I'm going to put a half a drop of water on my brush to kind of thin that out a little bit. See how I did that? And now I'm going to go back over here while this is wet and blend this in. Okay, that may be a smidge too much, so I'm going to blend that in. And I want this side to be darker because this side's where the light's coming in. So this is the light side. This is the darker side. So I'm going to add some more brown in there and I'm going to blend that all in. And if I have too much on my brush, I just put it on the scrap paper. Get another half a drop of water and I'll blend that in. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then I'll meet back with you. So for this other pumpkin, I'm going to paint while the other one's drying. I've mixed white and a little bit of yellow and a tiny bit of brown. Remember, if you don't want all that on your brush, you get most of it off. And keep mixing until you get a color you like. I'm not sure I love it, but we'll make it work. All right. So again, we're going to curve our brush when we put our paint down. And I'm just laying it flat. I'm just getting the paint on there. But it's nice if you can curve it. And I'm painting upside down so my wrist doesn't go in that one. But that's okay. Okay, I got that all laid down there. And now I'm going to go back over while it's wet. Make sure that my paint is going in the direction that I want. Over here, I'm going to go curve my wrist the other way. All right, I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to take a little bit of brown paint, one dab, put it on there. A couple drops of water. And I'm going to thin that out. And that's still too thick. So I'm going to thin out the brown. And I'm going to, remember, this side's the dark side of the pumpkin. I'm going to lay that brown down. That's probably a smidge too much. So I'm going to get all the paint off my brush. And I just want that brown watered down. That's called a wash. When you take paint and you water it down. It's called a wash. Sorry, I'm taking so long. I'm going to go back in there with just a little bit of water on my brush and kind of blend that in. Remember, this is called the blended technique, where the colors blend in gradually. Oh, that was nice, and I messed it up. So we're going to go back over it. And you don't want to do what's called overworking, which you keep messing with it until you mess it up, basically. Overwork. So I'm going to put a little bit down here. And as you can see, that is too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the paint off my brush. And I'm just going to go back in with a half a drop of water. And blend that in. And that kind of giving like a little shadow in between that. But I don't want it to be too much. And I'm going to pick up a completely clean brush with just some water in it. And I'm going to go in there and kind of blend those in like so. Just so it's got a little bit of a shadow. Not much. And as you can see, the side's darker. It gradually gets lighter. And you can go back in. The key is don't forget to do this while it's wet. Okay, I'm going to stop this and fix this so I like it. Okay, we're going to finish painting the final pumpkin. I want to paint mine a turquoise color. So I put down some of that on my scrap paper. I'll start on this left-hand side. Remember, you're curving your wrist. And I'm just going to lay down the color. And then add a darker amount on the right-hand side, because that's where the darker side is. That's kind of like where the shadowy side is, less light. All right, I'm going to stop this and paint the rest of this because it's just the same theory. And then we're going to come back and do the leaf and the vines and the veining to the pumpkin. Okay, we have the base coat done of the 3 pumpkins. I'm gonna let that dry, and I'm gonna work on the stem and the leaf. So if you have green paint, you can go ahead and use green paint, or you know how to make green paint by mixing yellow and blue together as your base green. So I just have green paint, but that's okay. So I'm gonna take a little bit of green paint and paint the base for the leaf. Remember, the way you put your paint down makes a difference. I'm going in the direction that the leaf would be, and I need to switch to a smaller brush so I can get this smaller area right here. And this might take 2 coats because I can still see the white of the canvas. Once I have the basic color laid down, I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and I'm going to go back in and give it some highlights. So it's just not flat in one color. You could also make it darker. Okay, now we're going to do the stem. I'm going to paint mine brown. If you don't have any brown paint, you can make brown by mixing 2 complementary colors together. Red and green, blue and orange, or yellow and purple. But I have brown paint, so I'm going to use it. If you have brown paint, you can use it too. But if you don't, you can mix it. So I'm going to put a little bit of brown in here. Remember, I'm just laying the base coat. And then I maybe want the top part to be a little bit lighter, so I'm going to mix maybe a little white and a little yellow on my brush to get kind of a creamy color. Ooh, that's way too yellow. And I'm going to, that's too much paint on my brush, so I'm going to get it off by swirling it around so I get a nice point. And I'm going to paint the top so it's a little bit lighter. Kind of messed up. All right, I'm going to stop it and fix it. Okay, now that the pumpkins are painted and dried, we're going to put the lines in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a scoop of brown paint and put it over here on a piece of scrap paper. And then I'm going to take my water and I'm going to mix it down. And this is called a wash. So you can kind of see it's kind of watercolory. So once I have a good amount mixed, I'm going to twirl my brush so I have a nice point on it. I'm going to move this so I don't put my wrist in it. And I'm going to go with where you would imagine the lines being. Okay, if it's too dark, rinse your brush out with some water, this one, and then just kind of fiddle with it with the water. If you think it's too dark, this part's a smidge dark, so I'm just going to add a little water to it, go back over it, get some of the paint off of it, and work my magic with it. All right. Okay, I finished painting it. It could use some touch-ups. The things that I'm looking for, again, are a light side and a dark side. I want all 3 pumpkins to be painted a different color. I want the background to be painted vertically with white and blue, and the table to be painted horizontally. If you have any questions, please contact me through Canvas.